Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
Hey, I'm wearing plaid. I'm Echo.
And she's Victoria. You're watching episode 74 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. And finally, we are starting our review of...
Album 59!
Yay! It's been so long since it finished airing, and now 60 is already more than half done.
To be fair,
on the OAC.
We started pre-recording 59 reviews a while back.
Yes.
Like half a year ago.
But now we can finally release them because we did all the things that we had to do before them, and now we're finally here because we're so behind. So, first things first. But before first things first, Victoria,
I hate
a little
you.
bit of news.
It's all uphill from here.
Little bit of news. So we now have all 6 titles for album 60. Once we finish our review of album 59, then we'll do our predictions episode for album 60. So we can talk about, actual predictions based on what happens in this one.
That's a good idea.
But at least now we can tell you the titles of the episodes, which are 795, Words from the Wise.
796, Cycle of Fear.
797, No Cause for Concern.
798, The Case of the Baseball Cap Hero.
Ball Cap Hero.
Ball Cap Hero. No Doubt, A Thrilling Mystery.
And 799 to 800 is Between the Lines, Parts 1 and 2.
Oh my gosh.
So obviously, the OAC 2016 season is numbered before these ones are, because these ones will air on the radio in spring. But this one, so the finale for the season, which is 6 episodes, like all of the regular seasons are going to be from now on, in case you forgot, will be the 800th official episode of Adventures in Odyssey.
I hope that
80% of the way to 1,000, Victoria.
799 and 800 are about Wooten and Penny.
So, we also have a couple of OAC 2016 episode titles. We know the January 1st episode...
Today.
Yes. Is going... Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
September.
Yeah.
The January episode, 783, will be The Journal of John Avery Whitaker.
And 784 is going to be called Walk This Way.
For February.
You know, our timeline is still less confusing than fairy tales
That's
and
true.
lots of other shows.
And then the other titles that we know so far, but don't know the month for, are The Boat People, Parts 1 and 2.
Good Soil.
Things Not Seen.
Untech the Halls.
Yes.
It's going to be like the 19th tech episode that has to do with Christmas.
Yeah. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 titles we know for the OAC in 2016. So that leaves 5 left to be revealed yet. So... that is the news of the day, and now we'll turn you over to a review of First Things First and Playing the Predictable. And here we are, Devin and Victoria of the past, talking about First Things First. Episode
Things First.
777, which did not end up being an episode about the apocalypse or Revelations or the Rapture, as some people had theorized it might be, and said the same thing about episode 666, which turned out to be the Jubilee Singers Part 3.
Oh, we were so wrong.
Yes, we were.
So
Jubilee
wrong.
Singers is so much better. Oh,
The music. Beautiful.
Just collect myself.
I listened, I was
Concealed
doing
don't
my
feel.
paper route first time I ever listened to Jubilee Singers. I almost started crying.
Oh,
It was just so beautiful.
so good. But this episode is written by Paul McCusker.
Polly.
What's it about, Victoria?
In this episode, Wooten and Penny decide to get some things settled out and try and figure out what their lives would be like if they were married. They try to get some things sorted. Wooten tries to figure out things for his new house, and lots of things fall through. In the end, he ends up selling his old property and deciding to build a house somewhere else. And Penny and Wooten get counseling from Ava and David about their future relationship if they were to get married.
Yes.
And Penny attempts to speak Japanese.
Yes. So we start off from the get-go, and wow, there are not very many albums that begin with a previously on right off the bat. The only ones that come to mind, of course, are 46, 7, 8, and 9, which was the era of like tons of interweaving
What about
arcs.
Novacom?
No, none of those albums began with previously on.
Really?
Yeah. The only ones I'm pretty sure are 46, 47, 48, 49. So I guess that really just goes to show how connected this album is to the ties that bind.
Yeah.
So we were wrong about the whole scene picking up right where it left off, which we talked about quite a bit.
I was kind of upset about that, honestly.
I really liked the back and forth cutaway conversation that they did there between Whit and Wooten and then Connie and Penny. It made me think of Tell Me More from Grease, actually. Like, tell me more, tell me more.
I was upset they never said first things first. That was like the one thing I really wanted. I wanted Penny to say first things first. They never even said those.
However, they did say Taking the Plunge.
Yeah, I was like, they said it. They said it. And, yeah.
That's funny how that's the quote we always say when someone says the title of something. And it's like, I'm sure there's better lines we could pick than a clip from Family Guy.
We don't even watch Family Guy.
Never seen an episode, and I never will. That show
I won't either.
Unlike many shows of a similar genre, that show is very promoting of emotionally abusive family relationships, unlike shows which are much better, like The Simpsons or Bob's Burgers, which show very
I will never watch those shows
together, healthy family dynamics.
To a certain extent. Anyway.
Penny's parents get mentioned. We know that they are going to they would be mentioned, and we know that they are going to appear at some point. So yeah, they've been name dropped now, so we're getting there.
We just have to do it one more time and then they'll arrive.
Yes. Beetlejuice.
I was actually talking about the rule of threes, but Beetlejuice works too, come to think of it.
Oh. I'm really glad that everyone is acknowledging the weird, both sudden and not so suddenness of this whole thing, this whole proposal.
I know.
And because it, like we said before, in a way, it's like finally, because they've been pining, Wooten's been pining after Penny forever, and they've been setting up from a narrative standpoint forever. But on the other hand, it is sudden because they've never communicated their feelings explicitly to each other, and then Wooten just suddenly proposes. So it's both sudden and not so sudden. So the fact that we had this duality about the way that Whit and Connie both feel about it, I really appreciated that they covered both sides of that.
Yeah. And you would think that Penny or Connie would be like, oh yeah, I totally figured this was going to happen. 'Cause she's the one who started it basically in the first place. But she was like, what? Proposal? And I felt so bad for Connie in this episode because all this stuff about, she's saying to Penny about marriage and she's like, and I was just like, oh, Connie.
It's like that line in Something Blue where they're like, it'll be like a fake wedding, how fun. And Connie's like, ha ha ha, I've had one of those before. Not that fun.
And it's just like, wow. Oh. No, that she's bitter. Would you like some fries with your salt, Connie?
And vinegar. Salt and vinegar both go with fries. Love vinegar with fries. I was also really glad that Whit did acknowledge Connie's feelings in this. Like, how do you feel about this and how it'll affect your relationship with both of them, and just kind of address the whole stagnant Connie thing in general. So that was...
Salt means mad, right?
Well, it means like sour, embittered,
right?
Okay,
yeah.
Like
no
vinegar.
one specifically
like
told me, so that was my
salt.
guess.
I did. I remember you asking me about it specifically when people were making the salt and vinegar jokes after Legends of the Hidden Tower.
Yeah.
About Jeff and Ray.
Oh, it was a while ago.
More acknowledgement of Mrs. Kramer living on Sycamore Street, right next to
Okay, so we're talking about Miss Kramer now.
We can.
Okay, good. I've been waiting for this for weeks.
This isn't actually, we're not on the scene where she's appeared yet. But I'd also like to reiterate the fact that her first name is Beulah, because that was mentioned in one of the OAC episodes, I can't remember which, and it's still such an obscure fact, it does not say it anywhere on her AIOO wiki page. Her page is named Mrs.
Not that many people are subscribed to the OAC like us.
I know, it just surprises me that even on there, people, like, it's not even on there.
Get on it, guys.
Well, I should add it. I know. I'm just lazy. Was really surprised it wasn't on there. I mean, it's her first name. It's Mrs. Beulah Kramer. And yeah, she lives on Sycamore Street. She moved there during the OAC.
Yep.
Like a good neighbor.
Yep.
What a title for Mrs. Kramer to move in with.
Uh-huh.
Oh wait, sorry, yes, it was that episode.
Well, in the case, she wasn't the one being the good neighbor. It was Wooten. So.
No, it wasn't that episode, was it?
It was the one where Olivia delivers brownies to
Okay, it is that one then. Okay, so, sorry, off topic, but it was very subtly mentioned in the Ties That Bind that she lived there, because Wooten talked about how she was dancing in the street while his house burned down, like Emperor Nero playing his tiny fiddle. So, more acknowledgement of that OAC continuity, which was nice. One thing I want to throw in here, I must have made a secondary note about it later. I guess not. We had that scene with Penny where, like you said, Japanese stuff. Yeah, she talks about, because she greets Wooten with Ohayo gozaimasu. And she greets him with it, and then she's like, I'm sorry, because the Japanese collector spoke English and would make it seem like she doesn't speak Japanese, or maybe she was just confused.
Either way, that was just a random patron coming in.
No, that was her.
Oh, okay.
She had a Japanese accent.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's her. I suppose it's possible it wasn't her, but maybe that's what the joke was. Huh. That might make more sense. That might make more sense. Actually, if it was just a different Japanese lady that happened to come in who doesn't speak Japanese. Anyways, the greeting Penny was using, when I first heard it, I thought maybe it's because, that greeting to me in my so extensive anime weeaboo experience has never struck me as a terribly formal greeting. I did look it up to check. Ohio by itself is an informal greeting, which you would give to a friend, but not like to a teacher or something. It's like tu versus vous in French.
No matter. She was like, excuse me?
No, but if you say it with gozaimasu on the end, Ohio gozaimasu, then it is a formal greeting that you would give to like a teacher or a senpai, or even more so a sensei than a senpai, or like a business associate or something. It is formal. So that is
going up
the
to
proper...
all the patrons. She's like, senpai, notice me.
It is the proper greeting that Penny used, and I was wrong.
So I've never heard that greeting in anything before. What's the one I'm used to?
Konnichiwa?
Yeah, or konnichiwa.
Just, there's lots of different things that lots of other words you could put after Ohio.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to say good morning, I don't know what the prefix is, but then it's like Ohio something else. Like different types of greetings would have different suffixes added, or not suffixes, different words attached to that. Yeah. There's your Japanese lesson for the day, everybody.
Konnichiwa.
But yeah, if you just take Ohio by itself, then it's much more informal, because I guess it's basically like saying hi instead of like hello or good day, because you're truncating the greeting. Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about Mrs. Kramer now?
Yes. At first I was like, aw, she actually gave a semi-apology at first. That line from Wooten. He's like, I thought that only applied, or she's like, yeah. He said, I thought that only applied to sharks. And she's like, you think we're different from them? And he's like, well, not some of us. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, he's fighting back. So proud. But then... Can I just go off on a tangent, please?
I have a couple more things to say about Mrs. Kramer in the scene first, and then you can fly away. I was imagining, imagine if she had been around on Sycamore Street during the Popsicle Kid. If she teamed up with Bart Rathbone against Wooten's house, man, that would have been a nightmare. Also, it makes me wonder, like, how many vocational pies has Mrs. Kramer had her wrinkly old thumbs in? Like, the zoning office, the library, the retirement home.
Ew.
She's just dipping her fingers into all of the pies.
What's wrong with you?
Little Jack Kramer. or Little Beulah Horner, whatever one is easier to associate with the fairy tale reference here.
Is that it?
Yes. Please talk about Mrs.
Okay.
Kramer.
So, Mrs. Kramer, first episode she ever appears in is in the episode, what's it called?
Is it To Make or Repair? Or To Mend or Repair?
Yes, To Mend or Repair. When Eugene is looking for recreational activities, which he can do with Katrina, to...
Nope, Anger Mismanagement was her first episode.
Oh. Well,
And Wooten was
anyway,
bringing
her
her milkshakes.
first most notable appearance, other than Anger Mismanagement, is that, and even back in Anger Mismanagement, like, she's annoying, but she's also kind of endearing because she sounds like Ross. So therefore she's funny.
With a Z.
Roz, whatever. I can't. So, I didn't really have any problem with her when she first appeared. What about you?
No, I mean, To Mend or Repair, I think everybody fell in love with her in that episode.
Yeah,
She's so
exactly.
especially when she does
Like,
her like poetry reading and stuff like
that was hilarious. And she's like,
People who walk out in the
cats.
middle of poetry readings.
Like, that's one of the funniest lines in all of Odyssey. But, like, what
My
happened to
nearsighted
her?
dentist.
What happened to her? I think the biggest moment was, like, I don't know, all the moments she got in the OIC, they just started going from, like,
Well, there's one.
funny.
She's only been in
like-
5 episodes, including this one.
Yeah, I mean, like, all her episodes just start going from, like, funny to, like, funny dark humor to, like, just really dark without that much humor. And the humor that is in there isn't really funny.
It's weird because she's one of those characters that feels like she's been in a lot more episodes. She's been in Anger
Yeah.
Mismanagement, To Mend or Repair, Mistaken for Good, and then Like a Good Neighbor on the OAC, and First Things First.
And even, like, in Mistaken for Good, you see another side of her. Like, you see this really nice side that likes to
she's
help
like,
people.
"Aw, Jay,
And
you're
that's,
so
like,
sweet.
one of my
You made me
favorite Miss Kramer
reconsider my
episodes."
hatred of humanity."
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, what happened to her? Wooten's house is burning down. He has never done anything bad to her. She starts, like, dancing in the streets like some kind of psychopath. And she's like, oh, doing a fire dance or whatever. I don't even know. And
I still like to picture her literally playing the violin, like Nero. Especially since in this episode, when later on in the episode, when Wooten opens the door to talk to her, she is playing in the background Boccherini's String Quartet in E, third movement, E major. I know this because I spent a long time, and my mother also spent a slightly less long time today, trying to figure out what the song was. It's one of those pieces you hear and it's like very iconic classical music. Very hard to pin down what it is. I spent about 20 minutes by myself trying to figure out what the song was so I could tell you all. I'll put a link to the song down in the description so that you can hear it. I spent a long time, about 20 minutes going through lists of famous classical music trying to find it because I was like, I don't think this is even a classical song that I've forgotten what it is. Like, this is just one I don't think I've ever known before what piece this tune is from. And I spent forever looking for it. Then I called my mother because she's a piano teacher. And both of us together over the phone, we both spent another 20 minutes trying to figure it out. I was looking through stuff on YouTube. She was looking on YouTube and pulling out all of her best of Mozart string quartet CDs and listening through the tracks quickly. We finally figured out, we knew it was probably by Mozart, which turned out to be wrong, but the other things which were right, we figured out the key, that it was probably a third movement, probably a string quartet, and the basic tune, of course, that it was in 3/4 time. And a couple other basic things that you could tell by listening to it in the background of the scene. And finally, we're able to pin down a song so obscure that not only had I never heard of the song before, but my mother, who has a degree in this, had never even heard of the composer before. So,
I haven't heard of him either.
yeah, Boccherini. Anyways, yeah, it's Boccherini's String Quartet in E major, third movement in Duet.
Anyway, so what happened to cause her character to go to just downright cruel?
You might have
like-
said it, actually. It was, or I guess I kind of said it too. It was Jay and Vance Mistaken for Good, and at the end, and she is like, "You made me have faith in humanity, and now I've reconsidered." It's all Vance King's fault.
I don't think.
No.
As much as I'd love to blame Vance for lots of stuff that happens in Odyssey,
No, Mrs. Kramer is just a terrible human being. There's
yeah,
no way
she
around
is.
that.
Like, I can't like her anymore.
It makes me sad because I really did like her. She was funny.
I did too. Like, she was hilarious.
Into Mend Repair.
What happened? Like, I cannot stand her. The first time I listened to this episode, I was furious with her.
To be fair, I guess the very first piece of characterization she had, even before her like funny, curmudgeonly kind of grumpiness, is that she hates Wooten. That's pretty much the first piece of characterization that she got.
Yeah, but she has no reason to hate Wooten.
Yeah.
Like, he's never done anything. The only thing you could get away with saying was the, like, Ferris wheel or whatever it was. Like, carousel?
It's a merry-go-round.
Merry-go-round, whatever it's called. But even that, he moved it. He put it in a park.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
Gallister Park.
Yeah. So it's, like, recreational for everyone. Everyone loves Wooten. Why?
Well, everyone that Whit allows into his park since he owns it.
Yeah. I bet Miss Kramer isn't allowed in the park, and that's why she hates Wooten.
Whit just has, like, an electric fence around McAllister Park now.
Yeah, I really wish... I remember when I was first listening to it. I know I'm a horrible human being for saying this. First time I listened to it, Wooten's like, I'm gonna go evict Miss Kramer. I'm like, yes! Do it! Put her in her place.
You're like Shia LaBeouf. Do it! Do it! Yesterday you said tomorrow. Do it!
And then Penny's like, no! No! And so... what do you think of the whole marriage counseling thing? I like that.
Yeah,
what they're doing with Ava and David.
We finally learned what David does for a living.
I thought we knew that before.
It took us 9 albums. I'm pretty sure we didn't, which I'm pretty sure is why Wooten and Penny kept commenting on it.
He got like power tools from his relatives, and he says that in Clutter.
Architecture is design. He's not a foreman. He's an architect. He designs buildings.
He's an architect, and he doesn't use power tools that he was given.
He doesn't do manual labor, though. There's a big difference. He's an engineer.
So?
Or he could be an engineer. I'm not sure all architects are engineers, but either way, he designs the buildings, doesn't build them. But maybe that's why they gave him the power tools, honestly.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, these are great quality, and I'm an architect. I'm never going to use these. And then he gives them.
But yeah, it's funny, because I realized a little while ago how funny it is with the Parkers, because if you look through the main families we've had on this show, the vast majority is that we have a family, and episodes about that family either focus on one or both of, or more than both of the kids, like looking at the Barclays, the Jacobs, the Washingtons, families like that. They focus on one or both of the kids.
Lots of the jobs they have.
Yeah. And they'll focus on...
What's her name? Never had a job.
They will specifically focus on the dads. They'll be, for these families, we'll have episodes that focus on the dads as independent characters, but we don't get, or very rarely get, episodes that focus on the moms independent from their family. Like George Barkley, there are episodes about George Barkley that have nothing to do with the rest of the Barkley family, and episodes that have to do with George's job, and we know way more about George's life and his job and his life outside of his family than we do about Mary. The mothers
what job did Mary get?
It was city planning involved.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I thought it had to do something.
Yeah, so the mothers either don't work or they have jobs that are just never specified, and they never get
what's her name?
Anywhere near as much focus. Dr. Morton is one exception to this. Dr. Morton and Mr. Morton.
What's the Washington wife name?
Elaine,
thank you. What did she do? I don't think she had a job.
No, I don't believe so, because in the Toy Man, she's like, if you get fired, I'm changing the locks before you even get home. I'm not going back to work.
And Tamika didn't have to do anything during
again.
The switch, so I guess she doesn't have a job.
Yes. So, yeah, these mothers, it's like we never get episodes just focusing on them apart from their families or talking about their jobs until the Parker family. Like, and same thing with Ed Washington. We got
until the Barclays needed to search for jobs, Mary didn't have a job.
Exactly. And we had episodes about George apart from the rest of his family. We had episodes about Ed and his job apart from the rest of his family and stuff. We had episodes about Dale Jacobs and the Odyssey Times apart from the rest of his family. He appears more times than anyone else in his family. But with the Parkers, we have Ava
appears significantly times more than David. She has episodes where she is a character apart from anyone else in her family, like the pilot, where it's about her and her job as a nurse.
She is the George Barkley.
Yeah, it's the first time that we finally had like a mother-dominated family in terms of the narrative way that the family's handled, which is super cool. And it just goes to show that even that, like, it's so much so that this family was in Odyssey for 9 albums before we finally found out what David does for a living, which is an architect. That was a long time talking about that point.
He builds things.
Yes. Or he tells other people how to build things. So
I hope he's telling other people, because he doesn't have any tools. This
was a really great way to tie the Parker's family stuff from the Ties That Bind into Penny and Wooten's stuff together. Mm-hmm. We got out a shout out to Happy Hunting. And then Wooten says, Taking the Plunge. And then we have Wooten and Penny move on to Hal's Diner again. Like, you'd think that...
Everyone goes to Hal's Diner a lot. They have a problem.
You'd think that Hal's Diner started sponsoring the show last season or something. I'm starting to feel like I'm being sucked into product placement for a place that doesn't actually exist.
Well, actually, I guess they never did go to Hal's Diner in the past as much as they do now.
No, they barely ever went to Hal's Diner up until...
got like a rat infestation or something, so they have to go somewhere else.
Hal's Diner first appeared in album 39, I believe.
In Between You and Me.
Yeah. And either way, it was during Novacom at the earliest. It appeared. And then it appeared like maybe 1 or 2 more times, maybe in the rest of up to album 50. And then suddenly it started appearing a couple times scattered here and there, and then it appeared like 12 times in the Ties That Bind, and now it's already like suddenly everyone's going there. Like, it feels like product placement, honestly.
Is going to open the shop one morning, and there's going to be like no one there for the entire day, and he's going to call up Connie and be like, "Where are you? You're supposed to work today." She's like, "Sorry, I'm working at Hal's Diner now." And he's like, "Where's everyone?" And they're like, "Oh, she's like, oh, they're at Hal's Diner."
UPF should just buy Hal's Diner. It would be the best thing for
Whit's gonna buy it, and he's gonna shut it down, and then Connie's gonna be like, "By the way, I arrived on time today, and you weren't here."
I mean, to be fair, both shops are named after Whit. I mean, Whit's End has his name, and so does Hal's Diner, is named after Hal Smith. So.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that.
I was really glad, super duper glad, that Penny started talking about like flexibility of stereotypical marriage gender roles in terms of working, cooking, staying at home, because she's like, I assume that like I'll cook the dinner and stuff after I get home from work, and then you'll do your mail stuff and stuff like that. I was like, and then she's like, or we could do this, or that's even if I cook. I mean, you could cook and I could work, and we could do this and this.
She's like, I like your cooking.
It can go, yeah.
If you stay, and I was like, I could work and you could be stay at home, then you can work on your comics. And I heard that, and I'm like, that's actually a really good idea. I think that I know I have no stake in the relationship, especially because it's fictional, but I think that's the best idea, because Penny would definitely want to keep on working at her job, and it just makes sense for Wooten to stay home and work on his comic.
Exactly, especially since while people do love Wooten as a mailman, Wooten is more in the service industry, where Penny is in an industry where it's, she is an artist building up her reputation, which is also what Wooten would be doing as a comic book artist full-time at home. While also looking
so it's like
Wooten's
at home anyway. Why don't we just get him to cook meals? Penny likes his cooking. He loves cooking. We know that from tons of episodes.
Exactly. So at first it sounded like it was about to launch into like, well, of course we'll assume that Penny will stay home and cook and quit her job so that she can be a housewife. And I was about to be like, and then it just broke into like, or we could do whatever, because,
I can just imagine you just pause you're about to pause the episode and you're about to like start typing, and she's like, and you just stop, and she says the rest, and you just nod, and then you just sit back in your chair.
I was very happy.
But I don't know, is it just me, or do you think that's the more sensible?
It does make a lot of sense, honestly. It would make so much sense for Wooten, especially because he keeps creating new IPs for his comics. He keeps creating new series and characters and stuff. So if he launched into that full-time, left behind the mailmanning, and then also was able to do house stuff while Penny was working at the art gallery,
I don't think he'd ever get rid of the mailmanning. Maybe like do it a little bit less, but never completely.
Cut back his route.
Maybe.
He does seem to deliver mail to everybody.
Yeah. It's like, Wooten, this is an intervention. You need to stop. Penny hasn't eaten in a week.
The union,
she needs food.
The mailman's union has asked you to stop because they cannot employ anybody else in Odyssey because you're delivering mail to the entire town.
He's like, not only Odyssey, you somehow got into Connellsville while we weren't paying attention, and now Chicago too. What is your problem?
There's no mailman in Odenton whatsoever. If anyone wants to have a job in the delivery industry, they can only work for Speedy Package Express.
Wait, no, we just got a call. Oh, Wooten took the jobs there too. What is wrong?
No, but Wooten wouldn't take the jobs from Speedy Package Express though.
Right.
That's why I said that.
Right.
Yeah. I really love the line where Penny was like, David Parker's an architect and he can text too? There's no end to what I didn't know about him. And I was like, tell me about it, Penny. We've known this guy since 2008, for goodness sake. I was like, I was in my first year of high school when David Parker first came on the scene, and we only found out now when he was.
I was in grade 7.
You would have been if I was in grade 8.
I was in grade 7 when we won the album.
Oh, it was 2010, wasn't it?
I remember telling my friends about it.
You're right. Yeah, that was before I checked and I fixed it. You're right. It was 2010. Still, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, when Penny's like, there's no end to what I didn't know about him, I was like, thank you, Penny. Glad someone's on my side here. Oh, and the line was like, yeah, we still go on dates. It lets us get away and talk about something other than the kids. So what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? The
kids. I was like, accurate marriage is accurate.
Yeah.
That was the realest line of this episode. It made me think of date night.
I hope that they continue episodes with Ava and David being like the coaches. It really reminds me
sure
of
they will.
What?
I'm sure they will, and it'll culminate through this process until we get to Let's Get Together in episode 6.
I hope it does. Do you think in the finale of the album, Penny's going to make her choice?
I imagine so. It's the most logical thing narratively.
Plus, isn't this going to be the end of the arc, or is it going to go into the next album too?
I don't know. If she says yes, then it would continue on. I honestly don't know. We don't have any definitive word. I'm just assuming that it would make sense for the end of this album to have Penny give her decision. I really love this thing with the pre-premarital and pre-engagement thing that they're doing. I'm not sure if it's pre-engagement. It really reminds me of the sessions that Katrina and Eugene did with George. Yeah, there's a lot of reminiscence of the Eugenia relationship.
Really needs a better ship name.
Such a bad ship name.
Such a bad ship name.
Katrine.
Katrine.
Anyways.
So,
Schultzner.
anything else? Stop talking before you dig yourself in a deeper hole.
Go on. Speaking of digging deep holes, I have to say, to be fair, Wooten is pretty justified in digging for oil underneath his house. Because one has to remember that old Jeb Eckhart became a millionaire overnight and no bones about it when he struck gold beside Triple Lake.
Yeah, I heard that. I'm like, if I was Wooten, I'd do the same thing.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. It was just such a good segue.
The part with Penny getting mad at Wooten and she's just like, I want you to be more like this. Did it or did it not remind you of Katrina saying the same thing to Eugene? She's like, why are you more like my dad? Why aren't you a lion of the jungle or whatever? Yeah,
that is definitely a word-for-word point, which is farther down on my list.
Like, I heard that and I'm like, hi, Katrina. Where did you come from?
Yeah, my exact words were, this Penny thinking Wooten is a pushover thing is very reminiscent of Eugene and Katrina in Malachi's message.
So, yeah.
So before we get to that point, it's really interesting. Apparently, Wooten's house is pretty old. It sounds like possibly older than the rest of Sycamore Street.
I like to think that there was just like this desolate area and then he put a house there and then years later, people are just like, oh, we should put houses here too.
It's really interesting though, because
that's like the most populated area in all of Odyssey.
It is. Which is interesting because it's on the very edge of town. which is why the Washingtons moved there so they could be as close as possible to
And the
Connellsville.
Strasburgs and the Rathbones and
No,
a bunch of
but
other
I'm saying
people.
that's why the Washingtons moved there specifically
Yeah.
so they could be as close as possible to Connellsville while still being in Odyssey, because it's on the very edge of town.
See, Wooten lives on the edge of town, so he can just like work his way up and then just come back
Yeah.
on his mail route.
So yeah, the really interesting thing about how old Wooten's house is I would have guessed that Wooten built the house himself, so he could build it the way he wants with all sorts of fancy, zany architecture and secret
makes
places
sense.
and stuff.
He has the money for it.
Exactly. So that's why I was really surprised that he took a pre-existing house, which means imagine how long he must have been doing renovations on that house in order to get it to the way that it was.
It's just so sad that his house burned
I know.
down. I'm still
Like,
so sad
There was
about it.
there's probably never a point in time where he was not doing multiple renovations on his house. Kind of like UBC.
Kind of like lots of places. But the saddest thing about his house is that he hasn't done any renovations on it in a little bit. He was probably starting to get really happy with where it was. Also, the fact that his relationship with his house is like he probably took something old and broken down. He probably took an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere.
It was a
and he's
Fillmore Recreation Redemption kind of thing.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm gonna make something of this place. And then he like built this beautiful, lavish, zany house. And then it got burnt down. And not only does he's like, oh, it's okay. It's terrible, but I get to stay in the same place. And then they're like, no, we're kicking you out. And he's like, actually, I live here, so this is my property. So all of you guys should leave. And then he's like, in the end, he's like, I would feel bad though. So he has to leave and he sells the land to them. And I'm like, this is the saddest thing ever. And yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad. I really want to know, when you said that, made me think, like, I really want to find more about what brought Wooten to Odyssey specifically. Like, why did he move to Odyssey from Alaska? Or did he live anywhere else in between?
I don't know,
We-
maybe he's
we
like,
have no
I'm
idea.
this far away from, I was like, I'm this far away from my dad, so I should be safe here.
I've moved the minimum distance away from Anchorage. I am now safe from my father. Good old Winslow Bassett.
Well, it's not like he's going to try and find him there until he wants to marry him off. Spoilers.
To be fair, I would love it if Wooten built a house just like his old one somewhere in a corner of Disneyland. I would love to visit that.
That'd be pretty great.
Yeah.
And then, like, the exit slide, I bet people would always sneak into his house because they thought it was, like, a ride. And then they'd go down the exit slide, and then he'd be, like, old and senile. I'd be like, get out of my house! And stuff.
Just like Gus, get off my lawn. Who are you talking
Get off
to?
my lawn. Who are you talking
Everyone.
to? Everyone.
So yeah, when you think about all this stuff, like, it is pretty odd that Mrs. Kramer moved so close to Wooten's house if she's so incredibly adversely against it, come to think of it.
I bet it was really cheap because it's next to Wooten's house.
Yeah, but thinking of all this stuff, like, do you really believe that the price difference between that house and the next cheapest house anywhere else in Odyssey was significant enough that she would have chosen to live next to Wooten? Maybe she didn't know.
Maybe.
You'd
Like,
think
maybe
Wooten's
she-
house would be pretty visually
Maybe
obvious.
she's like, wow, this house has such a good sale. And it's like on sale because I bet the Rathbones just moved out of it. They're like, we'll sell it for any price. We don't care anymore. And so she's like, ooh, new house. And then she gets in. And she's like, I'm safe. And then she like gets a knock on the door, muffin basket, like roommate's muffin basket. And then Wooten comes up and he's like, hi, Mrs. Kramer. And she just starts screaming and slams the door.
I love that idea, except for the fact that she can't have moved into the Rathbones house because the Rathbones live at 1313 Mockingbird Lane is the Electric Palace's
Yeah,
address.
it's the Electric Palace. But
They live on, I can't remember the street number, but the Rathbones live on Sycamore Lane, and Wooten and Mrs. Kramer are on Sycamore Street, which do seem to like merge into each other. But the fact that they have different addresses, they're far enough apart that the Rathbones house cannot be Mrs. Kramer's house.
yeah. Drat.
Yeah,
Drat.
sorry.
So close.
I-
Oh my gosh, I'm dropping things.
I really liked Ava's line about most of us don't even realize we have expectations until someone fails to meet them.
I was just like, yes.
I was like, speaking that truth, Ava.
Dropping those truth bombs
Yeah.
hard.
Spitting fire. Something a little confusing. I'm not entirely sure whether or not it's supposed to be canon or not. The whole Wooten owning Mrs. Kramer's land thing. Because given that Wooten was just tricking Penny, I might be inclined to believe that that whole thing was just part of that trick. But right before that, when David comes up with the idea, like he's not like, I have an idea. Here, Wooten, you can tell Penny this. He calls Wooten over to look at some of the papers he found while he was doing research on the property, which would only make sense if he discovered that Wooten really did actually own her land. So if he does, then you'd think he would have mentioned that when he's talking about selling his land. When he's like, oh yeah, I'm selling my land for super cheap, tells Mrs. Kramer, doesn't mention that he's also selling the land that she is living on. That'd be a pretty jerk move, Wooten.
That'd be so funny if all the neighbors got, like, the person next to their house's property, and then, yeah.
I mean, granted, Mrs. Kramer probably will buy it. Maybe that's why he's selling it so cheap, because he knows that she'll actually be buying her own house or her own land. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was like, wait, this is the end?
Yeah,
Huh.
I know, right?
I was like, I'm guessing this album really will be incredibly interconnected again. Because it's like all these storylines, crisp wrap up. So yeah, I'm guessing this really is definitely going to be a very interconnected with the storylines. I did not expect it to end where it did.
Mm-hmm. So, time will tell.
Yeah. Final thoughts on the episode, Victoria?
I miss Kramer.
Yeah. I'll give mine first then. The episode was good. It was a good opener. Like I said, I really liked the way that they wrote the back and forth cutaway scene in the beginning, and the way that they used that to pick up the way
big inning.
Yes, the way that like Whit would ask a question and Penny would answer it, then Connie would ask a question and Wooten would answer it, and stuff like that.
I remember the first time I heard that, I thought the four of them were actually in the same room.
They're just having two separate conversations in the booths, but occasionally they'll like eavesdrop and yell something at each other really awkwardly.
Like the two, Penny and Connie, are at Hal's Diner, and then Wooten.
And Whit, or
I almost said Witten.
Wooten.
Witten. I can't say it properly. They were at Wit's End, and then they're just walkie-talkieing each other the answers.
That would make sense. Sometimes the button's down, sometimes it's up. That's why I only hear part of the conversation. So, yeah. Overall, it was a good episode. The Japanese thing makes more sense now that you said it might not have been the collector who came in.
I didn't think it was her. I could be wrong. You could be right.
It does make a lot more sense why she was confused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we tied in the Parker's family stuff from the ties that bind to Wooten and Penny's relationship from the ties that bind. And figured out a way to bring it together in this premarital counseling stuff, and ties back to Eugene and Katrina's relationship back in the day. And that's super cool. We're moving forward with Wooten's house, and honestly, I figured that was kind of a thing that was just going to kind of get brushed under the table as a plot item. I didn't think it was going to be like a whole thing. So that's good. Overall, I liked a lot of stuff in this episode, except for Light of the Earth, Mrs. Beulah Kramer.
But we're supposed to not like her, but what happened?
Come
she was
on.
just so... To chalk it down to a word, I would use unpleasant. She was just... Everything was unpleasant to listen to. It was unpleasant to be around her.
Although that shade that Wooten threw at her.
that was the only thing that did make me laugh. Like,
the
that
shark
was really
line,
funny.
that was so funny. Well, some of us aren't. So, overall, give the episode 4.3. It's good, not super spectacular, just, it's good. It's good. That's like a solid A there, just scraping the line between a B and an A.
I really wish the scene continued off. Just
Which one? The end of Ties of Mind.
I'm still upset that it didn't open with Penny being like, first things first. I think we should lay down some ground rules. But they did do that throughout the episode.
It would have been nice.
There were some things
if they'd opened with that line, with that phrase. I would have liked that if that was the first phrase of the episode.
What did you say, though?
I would have liked that if that was the first phrase of the episode, like you said, first things first.
Yeah. I really liked so much of the things from this episode. I liked how they talked about, like, marital roles and, like, all the scenes with the counseling. So much of the dialogue was realistic. Miss Kramer made me really upset. More heartbreak for Wooten. I just realized, like, at one point in this album, I bet you there's going to be a scene that, like, opens, and it's going to be some kid characters and Olivia, and they're going to be like, and she's going to be like, and that's how my Room of Consequence adventure ended. And she's just, and they're going to be like, wow, that was so incredible. They're going to be like, use adjectives to describe it. Like, I can't believe that happened. And it's like, how was that possible? And I'll just be sitting there and be like, I don't know.
I hope so. I genuinely hope that happens just so I can see your reaction. What do you rate this episode, Victoria?
I'd say 4 out of 5.
All right.
Like, I think it was a good episode. It wasn't amazing, but I think it was pretty good.
All right. So on that note, now we'll turn you over to slightly more future Devin and Victoria as they talk about playing the predictable.
Let's see if we can predict what happens in it. Should we do predictions?
No. Because it's not like a two-parter. We don't know the next part is going to carry over stuff from this episode. So, no. Okay. We already did predictions for the album as a whole.
Let's play that predictable.
Yeah, and let's turn you over right now.
And we're back. It's totally...
You're difficult to work with today.
Today, because this is totally the same day that we recorded First Things First.
Yeah, I'm still wearing eyeliner.
And I'm definitely not living in a different province now.
Definitely.
So, yeah, episode 778, Playing the Predictable, second episode of album 59 now, written by Paul McCusker. What happens in it, Victoria?
So, in this episode, there are problems at the bank. So then Eugene goes and tries to help with the technical person to figure out what's going on. But it turns out money's being stolen from the bank. Wait, no, that was Mystery of the Clock Tower. Wrong summary. Okay, so in this episode, there are problems at the bank. So then Eugene goes and finds the technical person to help them figure out what's wrong with the bank, and they find out money's being stolen. Except for they don't know who's doing it still. And meanwhile, Buck is being problematic. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Cheeky.
He was trying to make friends with someone from Vance's gang. Vance is like suspended right now from the school. So Vance is getting someone in his gang to watch Buck, or Team Vance, as they're now calling themselves, for team building exercises. I can't remember what his name is.
Dion,
thank you. And so he's the person who gave Buck the black eye, actually. Anyway, so Buck tries to make friends with him. It goes weird. And then Buck, like, at the end, he's all like, do you solemnly swear to pledge allegiance to the Buck? And then Dion's like, yes. And then it ends. So, what the heck, Buck? What is going on?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning.
So, okay, let's start at the beginning. I listened to this episode about 4 months ago. I told Devin to listen to it. He listened to it last night.
2 nights ago.
I have been going crazy for 4 months. I was like talking to Gabe, I was talking to Mom, and I was like talking to anyone who would hear. I'm like, there's this character and I don't know what's going on, and I can't talk to Devin about it.
Yeah, and as you guys saw, Will made subtle reference to it in the interview, which I didn't realize. Victoria was like...
What was it again?
Just about, like, Buck, and it's like, is he good? Is he bad? It's like, so it's
yeah,
like
I started
confusing.
flipping out, and then I was just like, and you're like, what's with you? And I was like, nothing!
So, from the top, I love how Buck is so overwhelmingly charismatic that even Dion, who is now in charge of Vance's gang / Team Vance, can't help but be enamored by him.
I love it. I just love the thing about the ski mask. It's like you couldn't tell who I was because I was wearing a ski mask. Next time you're going to wear a ski mask, you might want to take the fancy print off that says Dion on it Oh, yeah. Yeah. Also, the thing with the taser, oh my gosh.
What was the
Like,
taser thing again?
How he looks exactly like his uncle who
Oh,
escaped
yeah.
from prison, and then he got tasered.
Well, it was
and
like-
he's just like, and then on top of that, he says he's been tasered multiple times. He's like, don't worry, it didn't have any effects. Only sometimes during thunderstorms, I can't seem to remember my name. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Wit was very uncomfortable there.
Who wasn't uncomfortable there?
I kind of love and don't love how, like, when Eugene says something that I know it's supposed to sound really smart and sciencey and over everyone's head, but I just understand it and it's normal. And I guess
You
I feel like
that or don't like that?
I don't know. I mean, I like that I get it, but I don't like that, like, what you're supposed to feel in the scene is lost in me because it's like, you know, Eugene's just talking about stuff. I feel like Wit, I guess.
I understood the majority-ish of what they were talking about.
Yeah. This was one instance where I didn't get everything. I'm not a physicist, so I wasn't familiar with Maxwell's equations. But
yeah, stuff like that.
I did look it up afterwards, and I learned.
What was it?
Maxwell's equations are basically just a very simple set of equations on a partial. What's the deal? I just had a total calculus brain fart. Integration and differentiation. Yeah, partial differentiation equations for physics for looking at the formations of light and other partial particles that help explain, like, the origin of particles. From what I understand, that's what Maxwell's equations are.
Okay, I still don't get it, but whatever, let's move past that.
Anyways.
There's Buck and Eugene bonding in this episode, and it was so important to me. Oh my gosh. And then Buck's, like, telling Eugene all these things, like, all these con artist tricks and stuff, and Eugene's just like, what? And Buck's like, don't worry about it. And he's like, okay. And it was so cute, because Buck's just like, can you tell me about the cool stuff you're doing, Dad? And I'm just like, ah. And then he's just
When
like,
he
no,
calls
I can't. It's very top
Eugene
secret.
I'm
Get
just-
in the car and I'll tell you about it. And Buck's like, yay.
When Buck calls Eugene Dad, I'm just gonna die. I'm just gonna keel over and die, and this podcast is gonna end.
I'm gonna scream when Buck calls Eugene Dad. I'm gonna be in a public place and I'm just gonna be flipping out. Whenever there's, like, the most important, like, plot twist or, like, shocking things happen in AIO, I'm always in a public place. Like,
so there was solid continuity flowing through with both Buck painting the shop and the business association still working through the Let's Get Together debacle.
heck yeah.
I'll admit, I am a little, or more than a little, frustrated that the new festival is being specifically marketed at support of traditional families, because I get that they don't want to make it a pride festival, but making it a neutral festival for families, you know, like, just not putting any emphasis one way or the other would have been a lot better. By putting the specific branding of traditional families on it, the only thing that does is makes it clear that queer couples are not welcome there, and it takes away any chance at outreach or community or understanding that could have been fostered there. And to be honest, it really feels counter to Wit and Miss Adelaide's conversation at the end of the album, where they're talking about, you know, trying to understand each other better, because what this just did was just drove a bigger wedge between them.
I agree.
So, yeah, I'm
salty.
Yeah. But, okay, Eugene's a legit deputy now.
I know!
I feel like Pullhouse was pulling one over on Eugene just so he could dump more of his workload on him. Like, he's like, here, Gene, I have to make... Pullhouse...
I feel like Pullhouse was hiding in the corner with, like, the camouflage makeup on him behind the potted plant just so he could see how Eugene would react, like, Suspicious Mind style.
I feel like Pullhouse was like, sure, Eugene, yeah, I just have to fake deputize you. Yeah, it's just like, you know, a joke, all official stuff, you know, just so I can show you this information. And then he's like, ha ha ha, that's 25% less work I have to do now.
Pullhouse is just so great. He's just such
character.
an entertaining character.
Yeah.
And then here at Pull House, if I could describe him with like a couple lines, it'd be like, my ex-wife still misses me, but her aim is getting better. Her aim's getting better. Her aim's getting better.
I like how Alex doesn't understand why that joke is so popular.
I know. I like how Alex is like, guys, stop quoting it, and everyone's just like, and in the line for autographs, someone's just like, my ex-wife
I saw that.
misses
Yeah.
me. And then I can just imagine Alex being in the front, just like face palming and.
So, yes, as you mentioned earlier, during our predictions for this album, the prediction episode that we did, we already made tons of jokes involving bank robberies in Odyssey. So rather than rehash all of those jokes here, I think I'm just going to redirect people to that episode where we make all the comments.
Did you like my description at the beginning,
Yes,
Devin?
I did. We'll go back to that
planned that
video
in advance.
where we make all of the jokes about how it's the bank manager.
I think it's the hacker guy.
So...
Wait, can I just say that whenever Eugene isn't at the courthouse solving court cases, he's at a bank solving robbery cases.
To be fair, he wasn't around in case of the missing, or case of the secret room.
Yeah, but this is like case of the mystery clock tower or whatever.
Yeah, I know.
Except for it's less interesting. And we don't know who the robber is yet, and it has
but it has Buck in it though, so that
it has Buck in it though. So
Buck starts like trying to be friends with Dion, and I was like, yes, Buck, please.
I thought Buck was like trying to like minister to him, and I was just like, Buck,
over.
I'm so proud of you. And at the end, I'm just like, what are you doing?
Getting there, so yeah, he's like, win the bully over. I was like, yeah. Also, Dion lives in Odyssey, and he's never been to Wits End ever. I was like, have you been talking to Jack Davis?
It's like Odyssey, Wits End is boring.
Can't believe
and then
it.
Wit's just like, I'll have to ask you to leave, and he's like, okay, and then he just walks out.
When Jack and Lucy were visiting for the best small town competition, they ran into teeny little Dion playing in the park. He's like, excuse me, mister, do you know where Wits End is? And Jack's like, psh, nothing interesting ever happens there. And he's like, okay, I'll never go there. And that's how people join gangs.
Oh my gosh. Can we make like a PSA to go on TV? And it's just like, you will join a gang if you do not go to Wits End.
Okay, so...
You will join Team Vance.
I
love Team Vance. And it's just like, oh yeah, we gotta do team building exercises. And we're too big, so we gotta like branch out. And that was funny.
When Wit saw Buck with Dion and he acted like a little concerned at the beginning, I started to get really worried because I started putting pieces together in predictions.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I was thinking. Wit was worried after seeing Buck with Dion, and there's this whole cyber attack side plot, and the title playing the predictable, which I didn't know what that meant yet at this point in the episode. So what I was worried about is, and it still I think is a fair worry, because Vance King is a master planner, I think he specifically put Dion in charge of Team Vance because he knew that Buck would get to him, and they'd hang out, and they'd be seen together, which would start planting a seed of suspicion about Buck in other people, and they'd see him with Dion. If Vance is also like behind the bank stuff, especially given that he's stuck at home right now with nothing else to do...
And Vince King, is his dad.
Then he could frame Buck and use Buck's friendship with Dion to put the nail in the coffin to frame him for it.
I'm just really,
he's playing
really
the predictable
now.
Because he felt Buck was predictable in that Buck would predictably, hang out with Dion and try to help him and end up incriminating himself.
I'm just really, really concerned for Buck. I'm worried that he's going through decharacterization, which makes me really upset.
I don't think it's decharacterization. I think it's just deeper characterization that seems confusing because there was stuff that we thought maybe was concrete and maybe it wasn't. He's not moving backwards, but, it is confusing. Okay, so Eugene's like...
I don't know what he's trying to do. I need to listen to the next episode.
That's the end of the episode, Victoria. We're still going through it. Eugene is like, I think the robbery might be an inside job. And I was like, what? Could it possibly be the bank manager? What a twist!
What a twist!
So... There it is, finally, the reference. Honestly, I wouldn't have noticed it if someone hadn't mentioned it months ago when the episodes first came out on the OAC, which I was frustrated that someone mentioned it, but honestly, I wouldn't have picked up on it if they hadn't, I think. The inventory number of the computer used for the hacking was 186753009, which was a reference to the famous song from the 80s, 867-5309, which is a phone number, and it's like a girl's phone number or something. It's a very famous song, and the phone number appears in lots of TV shows as a reference. And so, yeah, the phone number was 1-867-5309. So, sneaky.
So this episode, it was like, in my opinion, just ignoring Buck's side plot, which I'm not sure if this was, I feel like this was the side plot, and this was the B plot with Eugene, and the A plot was with Buck. So, like, ignoring the A plot and just taking Eugene's B plot with the bank, I feel like this was a very, very watered down version of Mystery of the Clock Tower. I like the whole, like, playing the predictable but don't forget the dog angle of it. I thought that was really interesting. I liked that part. But,
yeah, it was an interesting story. I'd never heard that before, or that expression even before.
Like, I listened to the episode again last night, and I think I finally completely understand what playing the predictable means, almost.
Yeah, it means, like, be friends and make it an inside job and stuff.
Yeah.
Gain their trust, and then stab them in the back.
So I think it's the hacker guy that's robbing the bank, and he's working with someone from the inside.
You mean the police guy?
Like the guy who called Eugene, who's like, "Hey, are you Deputy Meltzner?" That guy. I think it's that guy. I think it's that guy. Because I've been suspicious of him. I'm still suspicious of him. And he's like the janitor dude from the Clock Tower one.
So you don't
think
think
a crush on Felicia.
You don't think it's Vance's dad, whose name is Vince. Vance's dad's name is Vince. That's less creative than Stanford and Stanley.
I was thinking about that too.
Come on, Philbrick.
Philbrick Pines. Didn't know they were going to have twins. Named them both Stan. So, was it having twins was never the plan, so Philbrick chose to name them Stan, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Anyway, so, what was I going to say? I think that Vince and the hacker dude are working together. What's up with this stuff with the hacker dude and, like, Honeypot, and he's, like, flirting with her, but he keeps on, like, backtracking. Well, and it's, like, Felicia's and the guy, the janitor guy, and, like, their weird thing.
I mean, the first time, like, a honeypot is a type of, like, sting operation, a trap, in case you didn't pick up on that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Like, the computer, like, that's a technical term, like a honeypot, where you, like, leave something out as a trap to bait them in.
Yeah, but then he actually did start calling her,
yeah,
because
he likes her.
Yeah, and it's just, like, stop, you're creepy.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of a weird term of affection, I'll grant you that.
It's like Mother Gothel calling Rapunzel her flower, and
yeah,
it's like he's calling her honeypot, and it makes me uncomfortable.
Okay, so we hit the end of the episode, and Buck, what are you doing? I don't
even know what he's doing,
like
and that's what bothers me.
From the interview, Will talked about there was some confusion over whether Buck has really completely changed or not, and I'm guessing this is what he was talking about, but for now, I'm going to believe that this is just trying to make us believe that Buck is assembling his own gang. What I'm choosing to think is that
Team Buck.
Is that Buck is trying to turn all of these guys good at once, like kind of create his own Israelites type thing, like take over the whole gang. Oh my gosh,
Buck leading the Israelites would be the coolest thing ever.
And turn them into good guys based on what he said. But if that's the case, he's leading them in on the pretense that they're going to do bad stuff, which means he is biting off more than he can chew in terms of manipulating people to be better, and that is going to bite him in the end.
He's pulling a reverse Jellyfish.
Who did Jellyfish try to turn bad that was good?
No, I mean, like, he took all the gang members from Rodney, and he's like, we're going to do worse stuff, because you guys are sissies.
Oh, yes, I suppose so. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I also was reminded of The Good, the Bad, and the Butch a lot in here, like Sam hanging out with Butch, and then people start getting worried about Sam. Is he becoming bad?
The part where I was like the most reminded of it was like at Wit's End.
Yeah.
The scene at Wit's End. I was like, this is The Good, the Bad, and the Butch.
Same.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the episode ends. Wait, what?
And yeah, I started yelling at my iPod when it ended. I wasn't happy.
You'll be excited about this. As of this episode, Buck Oliver has been in 20 episodes, placing him on the major character list by AIOO Wiki standards. Buck, you're one of us now. Yeah, didn't take long. Between Green Ring Conspiracy, he was in 11 of those 12 episodes, and he was in most of the episodes of Ties That Bind as well.
It's so weird to go back to Green Ring. What
I can
about you?
imagine.
Like, have you listened to it again since?
I can't remember the last. Yeah, I would have. Yeah, because I
It's just
listened
so
through
bizarre
all
to
of the
listen because he's
episodes.
just like kidnapping Katrina, and he's like, gotta be all evil, and then you go to like now, and he's like, come on, Mr. Eugene, let's go on a fishing trip, and I'm like, my heart.
So, what do you think of this episode, Victoria?
I don't want to know what's gonna happen. I think he wants to get revenge on Vance for what Vance did to Jules and what Vance also did to Buck. But I don't think he's going about it the right way. I was hanging out with my friend the other day. And there was one point where she was telling me about a story she was going to write. And she gave
Was this
me...
with Riley yesterday?
Yeah, with Riley. And there's this quote that she showed me that kind of inspired a story that she wants to write.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, don't get mad, don't get even, do better, much better. Become so engulfed in your own success and happiness that you'll forget it ever happened. And I'm like, Buck, that's what you need to do. Like,
Is that a text post or a Night Vale tweet?
no, that's a text post. We don't know where it came from.
I've seen it before, but I couldn't remember which one, and it could easily be either.
Yeah. And
I guess if it was Night Vale,
that's
it would
what
be
Buck
like
needs to do. He needs to get over being angry with Vance. Buck needs to become a Christian and lead the Israelites. He's gonna be the newest Billy McPherson. It's gonna be amazing.
third generation Israelites.
Yeah, heck yeah. But like so many
That'd be
people
really
would join
cool.
the Israelites if they made it nowadays. And we wouldn't have to deal with the Bones of Wrath because they wouldn't be around.
Well, they would turn into,
there'd be-
essentially, because the Bones of Wrath is like Team Vance now, and if they turned into
Yeah.
the Israelites...
But imagine if we couldn't get Team Vance, which I don't think this is going to work out.
No,
honest.
it's not.
This isn't going to work. So
Buck is biting
imagine
off
like
way too much.
there's Team Vance, aka the Bones of Wrath, versus the new updated Israelites, and it would have like Olivia and Matthew, and it'd be led by Buck. And
Imagine Jay being caught in the middle.
Jay, I could totally see that happening.
Because Vance wants to join, but everyone else is like, come on, Jay, you can stop.
Oh my gosh, I need this to happen. Because, like, Jay never... I don't think Jay is actually a part of Vance's gang.
No, he's not.
And so, like, he was never involved with, like, hurting Buck or anything.
Jay's like an
that.
unwilling freelancer to Vance. Or Buck.
He is. It's
yeah.
like
You
the
know.
reds and the blues, and then you just have, like,
Jay
wash.
is Tex.
You have, like, Wash or Tex in the middle, and they're just like, what do I do? I hate both of you. What do I do?
I like the idea of Jay being Tex.
And yeah, I was gonna talk about some Pinocchio stuff again in relation to Jay, but I realized it's about part 2, so I'll talk about it in the part 2 review.
Which already happened
we've
at this
totally
point.
done already.
So you could if you want to.
Oh yeah. So I don't know, I feel like I'll talk more about it in the part 2 for Pinocchio review, but it's just all comes down to like Jay and Vance do not have a healthy relationship in any way. And
Jay doesn't like being in that relationship at all. He would totally cut it off if he could.
It's very unwilling. It's very unhealthy. You look at like Mistaken for Good.
Did you specifically choose Mistaken for Good to be with Pinocchio Part 2 like that?
I didn't
or
know
was that
that
before?
Pinocchio was going to be about Jay. I didn't know that Jay was Pinocchio. It just worked out that way.
That's
it was 2
really
months
funny.
of Jayness, and that made me so
2 clumps
happy.
but specifically Jay and Vance.
Yeah, and then they're both Jay and Vance episodes. So, like, Jay and Vance's relationship, like, Vance can always get to Jay, and that really bothers me, and I just need an episode where they finally where Jay gets to a point where he can just, like, stand up to Vance. I mean, he'll probably get beat up when he does, but I just need him to stand up against Vance and be like, hey, what you're doing, I'm not gonna go with it. And
Yeah.
Jay is just so important to me, and I don't want him to be manipulated by Vance anymore because it makes me really, really sad. And it's a lot like Butch and Rodney and Jellyfish. Like, Butch doesn't want to go with it, except for Butch was a good guy, and I don't know. What do you think?
It feels like Dion, certainly, like, they're leaning towards the idea of him turning gay because they're putting this effort into it, but I think it might just be like a changing Rodney thing where it ends up backfiring on Buck, especially if he's going to try and, change the whole gang at once kind of thing.
I think it is definitely going to backfire on Buck. Do you think the next episode is going to have Buck in it and continue this, or?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because the first part, First Things First, we were like, wow, this album really will be interconnected, and then this one just leaves off like this. So yeah, it seems like this whole album will be again just all blurby.
Then why didn't Green Ring Conspiracy and Ties It Fine have different titles?
It is interesting because it seems like this one could theoretically. It could almost have the same title. I don't think it's.
Can you imagine if like all the episodes were different plots and then they just never connected and were never addressed again? And then it's just like, pick up the pieces, audience.
That would be awful.
Or like the first 5 are just different things, and then number 6 is just like a 5-hour-long episode just connecting all the pieces.
All right, we need to finish this episode though. So Final thoughts.
I'm so conflicted about where the story's going. I don't know what direction it's going. I need to listen to the next episode right now. I'm going to listen to the next episode as soon as we finish recording this. Devin?
Do you have any more thoughts? You have to give a rating and stuff. So, yeah, I'm not sure. It's certainly difficult to give a rating for this because both plot lines are unfinished right now. In a major way.
I don't feel like I can give a fair rating to it.
I'll say this, though. This episode definitely does have me intrigued with the Buck stuff. I'm very hooked, and it seems like it's farrowing into a lot of big character development for Buck. So, but it's also unresolved, and the whole bank thing feels like it's been done before. The idea of, like...
It has been done before, that's why it feels like that.
The idea of sneakily taking out very small increments of money from a lot of accounts. I've always liked that idea. There's a book by a Christian author, Ted Decker, wrote the Heaven trilogy, and the first of those 3 books involves a guy trying to rob a bank by taking, I think it was 10 cents. It's like every time someone used an ATM from this major multinational bank company, he would charge an extra 10 cents ATM fee, and then he'd take those 10 cents. And then he did that for 24 hours and he got like $10 million back because he invented the bank software, but then they like snuffed him and didn't give him any money for it. So that's why he was taken back, and that's why he knew how to do it. And I thought that was so clever, especially because he also wrote a program in where if some random little old lady who checks through every receipt was like, hey, I got charged an extra 10 cents, so I'm going to call the bank about this. And if the computer looks up the record, if a query is made to the record where that happened, the 10 cents would go back in and it would erase any record that ever happened, and they get their 10 cents back. So he like got $10 million, and then he had to give back like I think 500,000 in people who like checked their records, and then the computer automatically gave the money back to those people so that they wouldn't be able to figure it out, which is what this guy didn't do, and he wouldn't have been found otherwise. And yeah, so he got away with like $9.5 million.
But it's totally the hacker guy, because he's just like, hey guys, let's turn off the system and not tell anyone about it. I'm like, it's totally you. And then, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be partnering up with... It would be interesting, because I don't think he's framing Vance's dad. Vince, who is Vance's dad.
I like how you're having lots of trouble with the names, but I'm not.
I definitely think that Vance is involved in this somehow, and that there's a tie between the robbery and between Dion and Buck hanging out, and that Vance has some kind of grandmaster scheme going on here.
Uncertain.
Unless that's what he wants us to think. We were pretty sure about, Wooten's cousin in Ties to Bind. But, yeah, I don't know. So, can you hear me right now? All right. So, I'll just close things out then. And Victoria replied, "Okie," which I'm assuming is supposed to say okay. So, what's your rating? Oh, I've lost my Skype connection. That would be why. All right. You know what? Let's not give a rating for this. I'm going to give it 4.6 randomly. That's my rating for it. We've set our things with something. I'm coming up with 4.6. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Victoria says 3.5. Ooh, that's not very good. And I guess that's all till next time. Next time, 3.7, she says now. All right. And we are back now here. Hi. Hope you enjoyed those reviews. Great start off, amazing start off to the Album 59 season, Taking the Plunge. And, yeah. So next time, what are we going to be reviewing, Victoria?
The next 2 episodes.
Which are...
Good
question.
A
big commitment.
Big commitment.
And... Dinner
role models.
There you go.
Yes.
All right, so we'll be doing that next time on episode 75 of the Odyssey Oddcast. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And I've been Victoria Francis, also known as Echo.
Thank you, and good night.